Mercedes-Benz is a brand that is well known today. You have many different body styles like the E-Class and G-Class, but today we're taking a look at the infamous C-Class and how it went on to become one of Mercedes' best ever sellers. Welcome to Brand Icons. First off, some history. Mercedes-Benz were no strangers to making four-door saloons. They already had iconic models like the Pullman 600 and the first-generation S-Class, dating all the way back to the mid-1960s and 70s. However, the company lacked an entry-level four-door saloon car for the masses. The German company turned to an individual named Bruno Sacco for inspiration. Born in Udine, Italy, Bruno was eager to make his mark in automotive design. Mercedes hired him right after university, and the two formed a partnership spanning more than 4 decades. It took Mercedes more than 8 years for their aspirations to become a reality. From 1974 to 1982, a total of $750 million was spent on research and development for the W201, with Mercedes claiming it was, quote, massively over-engineered. First prototypes were developed that year, and final designs were approved in March of 1979. It wasn't until February 1982 where the final prototype could be signed off and be put into production. The 190e became an instant hit, selling over 1.8 million units over its 11-year lifespan. The most notable of these models is the 190e 2.316 valve, a performance-oriented iteration of the 190e that took the world of motorsport by storm. A model so great that we've dedicated a whole video to it, so be sure to check it out when it goes live. Development started on a replacement to the 190 series in October of 1986 under now head of design Bruno Sacco. It took Mercedes 2 years to finalize renderings, and in 1989 a designer named Oliver Burley was given the green light. Introduced in 1993, the first-generation C-Class marked the beginning of a new era for Mercedes-Benz. Code-named W202, it was the brand's first ever standalone entry car, until the introduction of the A-Class all the way down in 1997. This new model retained the boxy design language of the 190e, but was more modernized and refined both internally and externally. A variety of petrol and diesel engines were available, ranging from a 1.8-litre inline-4 to a 2.8-litre inline-6. Diesel models were even more popular for their high durability and efficiency, including the C220 diesel and the C250 turbo diesel. In 1995, Mercedes went big and introduced the C56 AMG and hailed it as the spiritual successor to the 190e. This was the first ever AMG to be offered right out of Mercedes-Benz factory, and boasted a 3.6-litre inline-6 producing 280 brake horsepower and 284 pound-foot of torque. 0 to 60 was achieved in a competitive 6.8 seconds, or 6 seconds depending on test conditions, with a top speed of 155 miles per hour. Have the limiter removed and you'll be cruising past 169 miles per hour. Power was sent to the rear wheels via a 4-speed or 5-speed automatic transmission. Unfortunately, there was no manual variant at all, meaning automatic gearboxes were the only configuration on sale to the general public. A real shame considering manuals were still incredibly popular and quick at the time. Despite the lack of a manual gearbox, the C56 AMG still wowed journalists upon its release. The new car featured larger cooling channels, wider front and rear bumpers, larger ventilated discs, and a tweaked suspension setup. All in all, the car was completely different to the base model. For what the C56 gained in performance, it didn't lack in luxury. You could still have your interior trimmed in the finest walnut and leather, and keep the comfortable powered assisted seats. a true testament to luxury and performance. With its ability to deliver power and keep its passengers relatively comfortable, we honor the inaugural AMG with a solid 8 VIN rating. If you're liking the video thus far, do hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date with more content coming in the future. Now back to the video. Leading up to Mercedes' acquisition of AMG in 1998, competition was beginning to ramp up. BMW had released a highly anticipated second-generation M3, and Audi had a growingly popular S6 saloon. Mercedes needed to respond in a way only Mercedes could. So, in 1998, Mercedes brought out the C55 AMG to the public. Under the bonnet was the all-new 4.3-litre naturally aspirated V8, producing just over 300 brake horsepower and 302 pound-foot of torque, making it the first time a V8 was put into the C-Class. 0 to 60 was dispatched in 5.7 seconds for the saloon and 5.9 seconds for the estate respectively. Top speed was identical to the C36 in both saloon and estate form, which was 155 miles per hour. The overall body of the C55 AMG shares many similarities with the C36. However, notable differences included the front and rear bumpers along with the gearbox, which was a 5-speed automatic plugged straight out of the R129 SL500 at the time. The suspension and wheels were also tuned to help tackle the extra power. In spite of the lack of change in top-end performance, the C55 takes an already well-drilled car and gives it a much-deserved refresh. The addition of a V8 makes it a worthy second call into this beloved four-door saloon. The C55 AMG scores a healthy 8.5 VIN rating. Design work on the W203 third-generation C-Class began in mid-1994, well before production of the W202 had ended, with the final design being approved in December of 1995. Much of the engines were shared with the previous generation, like the inline-4 and V6, but Mercedes knew a new performance model was long overdue. A year into the new C-Class's release, the C32 AMG made its way to showroom floors. Boasting a scaled-back 3.2-litre V6, it was a departure from the V8 of the last generation. Power and torque figures were increased to 348 brake horsepower and 332 pound-foot of torque respectively, and 0 to 60 was good for 5.2 seconds. Top speed remained unchanged at 155 miles per hour. The new car also featured the same 5-speed automatic transmission. However, this generation of C-Class offered a manual gearbox as standard, which wasn't present in this car. Even though the C32 was blisteringly quick in a straight line, handling felt rather dull and lacking in the corners. Going round bends felt unnatural and heavy, like the car was out of its own natural domain. Other known problems included rust underneath the body and interior rattling sounds, which were common for Mercedes at the time. That being said, long-distance drives were a treat, especially in the estate, and given enough room, top speed runs would always be a fun pastime. However, this isn't enough to save the C32 in our eyes, which is why it scores a rather dull 6 VIN rating. That being said though, there was a diesel version of this car also known as the C30 CDI AMG. It used a controversial 3-litre 5-cylinder diesel engine, capable of 227 brake horsepower and 398 pound-foot of torque, but was poorly received by the public. After a horrible launch and terrible first-year sales, it was retired in 2004 and remains the only post-merger AMG diesel ever offered. Along with the mid-generation facelift of the C-Class in 2005, the C32 AMG was also replaced, giving way to a new 5.4-litre naturally aspirated V8-powered C55 AMG. This was an evolution of the V8 engine found in the previous E-Class, with power raised to 362 brake horsepower and torque peaking at 376 pound-foot. The C55 AMG featured a V8 from the same engine family as the W202 generation C43 AMG. Though maximum speed is still electronically limited to 155 miles per hour, the 0 to 60 time dropped to 4.7 seconds, making it the fastest accelerated C-Class to date. Unlike the less powerful V6s in the rest of the Mercedes-Benz lineup, the C55 AMG continued to use a 5-speed automatic transmission with AMG speed shift technology. It shares its longer engine bay and front-end design with the CLK55 AMG to accommodate the larger 5.4-litre V8 engine. The front of the car was also extended by about 80mm. The C55 was also the first AMG C-Class to feature quad exhaust tips and an external differential cooler. Round the Nürburgring, these upgrades made all the difference. The new car was way quicker than its predecessor, with a lap time of 8 minutes and 22 seconds compared to 8 minutes and 37 seconds, thanks to a revised suspension system and extra power and torque. Mercedes also offered the Estate, continuing the trend of offering family-friendly alternatives. Although only offered for a brief period of time, the C55 AMG has been praised for its reliability, as the preceding C32 AMG and the succeeding C63 AMG were plagued by engine issues. Needless to say, the C55 AMG left a legacy that remains untouched even to this day, as it ushered in a new era of V8 performance saloons. The C55 AMG scores a near-perfect 9 VIN rating. Stick around for part 2 on the icon that is the Mercedes-Benz C-Class.